white people.
I hate all white people. I want all white people to go die. Die, white devil, you cracker bitch.
Grace and peace, everybody. You've heard me say before that critical race theory is a cult. It is a different religious system. It's not just the academics. It's not just the legal framework. It is a religion. It is a belief system. It is a faith system. And I want to go over a couple of quick TikToks to make my point. This is a grievance religion that only finds its flourishing in the destruction of other people.
White people.
I hate all white people. I want all white people to go die. Die, white devil, you cracker bitch.
Wow. Let's see what this is about, Jason. So before we get in too deep, let's just look at what the scriptures say. Remember, when Christ was here on the earth, he said in John, he says, and I want to focus on, take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am gentle and lowly of heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And I always encourage people, read the entire chapter, all of the passage, but I just want to focus on that today for what we're going to be discussing here. So it's clear that Christ is not, he's not encouraging a ministry of anger and grievance and the such like that. So we're going to look a little bit more deep under the cover and under the hood, so to speak, and see, why does Jason say that critical race theory is a different religion, a cult? Before we get too far, let's listen to Ibram X. Kendi, a wise sage that he is, tongue in cheek. I would define racism, as a collection of racist policies that lead to racial inequity that are substantiated by racist ideas. What does that actually mean? What does that mean, Mr. Rogers? What does that actually mean? I also want to talk about what James talked about, the sin of partiality. And we're going to look at verses 1 through 7, actually 1 through 8. My brothers, show no partiality as you hold the faith of our Lord Jesus Christ. So in Christ's church, the sin of partiality, which can be called racism, should not be present, okay? The Lord of glory. For if a man wearing a gold ring and fine clothing comes into your assembly, and a poor man in shabby clothing also comes, and you pay attention to the one who wears the fine clothing and say, you sit here in a good place, while you say to the poor man, you sit over there or sit down at my feet. Have you not then made distinctions among others and become judges of evil thoughts? Listen, my beloved brothers, has God not given those who are poor in this world to be rich in faith and heirs of the kingdom, which he has promised to those who love him? But you have dishonored the poor, and are not the rich the ones who oppress you and the ones who drag you into court? Are they not the ones who blaspheme the honorable name by which you were called? Here's the last verse. If you really fulfill the royal law according to the scriptures, you shall love your neighbor as yourselves, you are doing well. But if you show partiality, you are committing sin and are convicted by the law as transgressors. All right, let us keep this game rolling.
If BIPOC stand in the street and scream at the top of their lungs, I hate all white people, I want all...
BIPOC saying all white people need to unalive is not racism. Okay. So
white people to go die. Die, white devil, you cracker.
Whoa. So in this woman's mind, someone telling a white person to die is not racist. It's not bad. And she's going to explain in her wisdom why that's not bad. But she's saying that that's not a bad thing for people to say that. So let's look at the scriptures and see what the scriptures actually say. This is from Deuteronomy, and I thought it was interesting because it's something that I think many of us tend to overlook. And it's those who are accepted into the assembly of God. Now, we're going to jump all the way down to verse 7. And you shall not abhor the Edomite, for he is your brother. And this is just something to consider. You shall not abhor the Egyptian, because you were a sojourner in their land. Children born to them to the third generation may enter into the assembly of God. And the reason I wanted to bring that up is because God told the Israelites not to even hate the Egyptians, who of course would be the quintessential example of slavery in the scriptures. Literally so much centers around the Israelite Egyptian situation that happened, I mean, most of the Old Testament centered around that, and definitely the early Old Testament. For crying out loud, the book of Exodus is about leaving from Egypt. But God told the Israelites not to hate the Egyptians, which would have seemed perfectly normal for them too, but God told them not to. Why? Because they actually helped the Israelites when Jacob and his family came to Egypt during the famine with Joseph. That actually preserved that family. So God is saying, remember, that's why you were brought there. And they actually rescued you, because otherwise they probably would not have made it if they had stayed in the land that they were in. Just something to consider. Let's keep this game going.
That's still not racism. And I don't know why people don't get that, why people are not comprehending that. That's discrimination. It's an action that's bred out of a prejudice, for sure.
Discrimination. That's what we just read in James. And that was wrong. It was called a sin. So just because this woman gets on TikTok and says that it's not wrong, it's not a sin, it doesn't change anything. God said that that is a sin. But she's going to say telling a person of high melanin, tell a person less melanin to die, blocking the roads and yelling at them to die, that's not a bad thing.
Sure, justified, arguably. But screaming white people should die in my face doesn't change my socioeconomic status. It doesn't change the fact that the criminal justice system was built to serve me and people who look like me. It doesn't change the fact that my skin color won't get me brutalized by the police. It doesn't.
One of the things that people like this lady here do, and I think is really interesting, is they only highlight things that they can take some level of responsibility, or rather they feel they can take some level of responsibility for: criminal justice, police brutality. But what about the things that the highly melanated people do to themselves? What about that? She doesn't talk about that. She only talks about these three ancillary things, but there's still far more, like, again, the crime rate from the highly melanated to the less melanated. What about that? Like, why is she taking on this grievance for no reason? And then, of course, telling us that we're wrong for saying otherwise. But let's keep it going.
Change the fact that the entire country was.
Oh, yeah, right here. Racism is about a power dynamic that is enforced on institutional levels. Only white people have this advantage. Who says that? Where does that say? Because in James, it didn't say that. It didn't say that. It didn't say that you had a power dynamic and the person that had less melanin was a person that was shabby clothes, and the person that had high melanin, or either way. It didn't say any of that. It didn't say power dynamic. They've made this up in order to keep their religion going. Again, this is a fake religion.
Built to cater to people who look like me. Screaming "I hate white people" at me doesn't change the fact that I am dripping with white privilege. As long as I hold the power dynamic, I cannot be subject to racism. Hurt white feelings does not equal racism. This is not a...
How does that even work? How does that work? Somebody is being completely, because again, if it flipped on his head and a white person was yelling at a black person, maybe a white homeless man was screaming at a black CEO. Is that a power dynamic? What about, I don't understand. Like, how does that work? It doesn't. It's just a foolhardy venture. If you are colorblind, you don't see race. That is not true. That is not true. I see race. Everybody does see race. When someone says they're colorblind, they're not saying that they physically cannot discern between a highly melanated and a less melanated person. That's not what they're saying. And I know that Soraya Rao, this is the woman that puts on the race to dinner club meetings where less melanated people pay money to come to dinner and be told that they are racist, they have white privilege, they're oppressors, and so on and so forth. They pay good money too to hear this. This is the woman. So she says, if you are colorblind, you don't see race. No, we do see race. We choose not bond to somebody based upon their race. Miss Rao, you're more intelligent than that. If you don't see race, you don't see racism. That's not true. I can see that you are being a racist in the things that you say, Miss Rao, and I can tell that you are an Indian woman with less melanin than I, but more melanin than Becky or Sally over there. I can see that. It's really that easy. You are not actively anti-racist because anti-racism is a foolish, ignorant, stupid idea. That's why I'm not anti-racist, Miss Rao, because it's stupid. It's dumb. It's making this quote unquote idea that came from Ibram X. Kendi the quintessential goal of all of life. That's dumb. It's stupid. And I'm going to say it again. It's dumb and it's stupid. And for the third time, it's stupid and it's dumb. That's what I'm going to say. Hey, this is future Jason. I don't mean to interrupt past angry Jason, but I just want to make sure I make this point clear. Critical race theory creates brand new law. It creates new must-dos and new requirements of people, of Christians, that God did not give us to do. Now, should we go around discriminating against people? Absolutely not. That's what James talked about. Should we go around showing partiality to one group over another group? Of course, we shouldn't do that. However, critical race theory does all of that in spades even. Though past Jason was a little bit, he was a little bit rough around the edges. I do want to point out the fact of what he's saying is still true. The law, this new law that the critical race theorists bring up, and they heap this on you. You must be anti whatever we said it is. You must be actively anti against whatever we say it is. That's not God's law. God didn't say he had to do that. So you're not bound by that. That's why Christ said, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So I'm going to give you back to hopefully a little less angry Jason, but this is future Jason telling you what you're going to see in your future, but it's really my past. Okay, whatever. Peace out. If you are not actively anti-racist, you are racist. No, you are a liar. That's not true. It is not complicated. I agree. It's not complicated. Don't follow stupid, ignorant, man-made, made-up ideologies. Problem solved. Thank you, Ms. Rao.
You know what? While we're on the topic of how white people are just f***ing the world up for everyone,
whoa,
you're not one of the good white people.
So this young lady right here, again, another white woman that is easy to pick on if you want to gain credibility, if you want to gain clout. Being a white person, calling out white people is the grift. If you want to use your grift credits for something, this is the place to invest your grift coins in. Let's go. Sorry. You're not one of the good white people. There are no good white people.
There are only anti-racist white people and racist white people.
That doesn't even make sense. That doesn't even make sense. You just made up the term in the last 5 years, anti-racist. So even in that, like, what are you talking about?
Anti-racism is a lifelong project. And the end goal is not for you to be good, is for society to be good. Decenter yourself. I guess that makes sense. But again, this grift allows her to claim some level of superiority and using this, calling out people in her people group, because again, white people, it is cool now. It is socially acceptable to be as racist and as partial and as evil and vile and wicked toward white people as possible. And she can do that and get away with it. I hope I didn't ruin her project. And the end goal is not for you to be good. It's for society to be good. Decenter yourself. Do the work. It's hard. You're going to get it wrong.
Do the work. Do the religious activities that we're making up as we go. Literally, wait till you hear what she says white people are doing. Wait till you hear this one.
Wrong. But if you are not out there every day actively trying to understand, you're not a good white person.
Why do you have to be a good white person? Maybe you just be a decent human being. Maybe you just be a decent human. Why do you have to be a good white person? She's already told you that you'll never be a good white person. So why are you even trying to be a good white person?
Stop patting yourself on the back. Stop congratulating each other. Stop separating us from the bad white people. Don't sit out there in comments and say, we don't claim them.
So apparently she's chastising the less melanated person. And I guess she has the right to do that because she recognizes that she's a bad white person. I don't understand.
We are them. We are them.
Who are them?
We are the ones shooting up schools.
Oh, so only people of less melanin shoot up schools. Really? That's not true.
We are the ones raping people.
Only white people rape? No other people group rape.
We are the ones enslaving people.
Where are white people enslaving people today? Just please let me know. Please put it down in the chat. Put it down in the comment section. Where? This is the ignorance of this false religion. Critical race theory is a faith system. I'm telling you, it's a belief system. Just accept it and acknowledge it. It's a belief system.
We're them.
Here's Ibram X. Kendi on how to fix racism. It's really long, so I broke it up into a couple of slides. Let's go. Venture. Shout out to Woke Temple because he put this together here to fix the original sin of racism. So again, it's a faith system. It's a belief system. It's sin.
I mean, according to Ibram X. Kendi, the original sin of racism, Americans should pass an anti-racist amendment to the U.S. Constitution that enshrines two guiding anti-racist principles. Racial inequity is evidence of racist policies, and the different racial groups are equals. Ibram X. Kendi is feeling himself. I just want to let that be known and be said. The amendment would make unconstitutional racial inequity over a central threshold, as well as racial ideas by public officials, racist, and public officials clearly defined. It would establish and permanently fund the Department of Anti-Racism, comprised of formally trained experts on racism and no political appointees. The DOA would be responsible for pre-clearing all local, state, and federal public policies to ensure they won't yield racial inequities, monitor those policies, investigate private racist policies when racial inequity surfaces, and monitor. Can you imagine the boondoggle that this would be politically and bureaucratically if every policy had to go through a bureaucratic review? Federal policies to ensure they won't yield racial inequities. Monitor those policies, investigate private racist policies when racial inequities surface, and monitor public officials for expressions of racist ideas. The DOA would be empowered with disciplinary tools to wield over and against policymakers and public officials who do not voluntarily change their racist policies and ideas. Can you tell me where in the world you got that kind of power from? So those are just a couple of examples, from the people that hate themselves to the people that believe that they are putting in place new dogmas and new doctrines for their false religion. These are examples of critical race theory being a cult, being a belief system and a faith system akin to Christianity or any other religious system. I mean, that's what this is. It is a religion. Just say it out loud, be solid with it, and just keep it moving.